Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us. I am Yori Folari. My guest this morning is Dr. Tony Ofoyetan, Director General, International Institute of Professional Security, which is sort of a spoiler alert into what we shall be talking about. Indeed, as you know, the President had to shift an engagement yesterday because he wanted to meet with security chiefs, and that meeting has held. You know, we got into the middle of all of this ever since the U.S. Embassy, spoke to its nationals in the country, followed suit by Britain, I believe. Now Australia has joined in, and just about everybody, in that orbit. But as our people have been saying, they're befuddled by why America had chosen to go this way. If they had known anything, you would have thought that they would have shared it with our guys professionally, but it wasn't to be. Nevertheless, the fact that the president, even though we've been assured by security people, put the whole thing has been put in perspective, but the president still took it importantly enough, whether we have been doing the needful or not, to call a meeting with the security chiefs. And we should be talking about that, the import of all of that. But first of all, I think, let me first of all say good morning to Dr. Tony Ofoyetan. A fine morning to you, Doctor.
Good morning, Uncle Yori.
Thank you very much for making the time for us. Okay, what we'll do is that let's take this report that went out earlier, and then we'll come back to studio and we'll begin our conversation.
The Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces summoned this Emergency Security Council meeting to receive briefs from his security chiefs over the recent terror alerts that put the country's federal capital in panic mode. Advisories from foreign embassies over a possible security breach forced several businesses to close down, and frightened residents had to look over their shoulders. At the end of the meeting, the security chiefs were able to convince Mr. President that the country is safe. The National Security Advisor says the fear caused by the United States and United Kingdom's warning of an elevated risk of attack in Abuja is unnecessary.
The issue of Nigerians being made to panic is unnecessary. The situation in various areas of the Federal Capital Territory, the situation has been brought under control, and we're trying as much as possible to work with our neighbors and within the domestic situation to work with our foreign partners in a responsible way.
The federal government insists the threat alerts are just routine safety measures issued by foreign embassies, mainly for the security consciousness of their citizens and not to frighten Nigerians.
We are in full engagement with foreign partners, and that the security, our national security personnel and agencies are fully on top of the situation, and that they're really, as they have said, there's really no cause for alarm.
The Chief of Defense Staff also talked about the gallantry of the armed forces in repelling an attack on the 221 Battalion Wawa Cantonment in New Busa, Niger State. He says the troops are alert to counter any threats to national security.
The night of 29th October 2022, Wawa Cantonment in Niger State was attacked. And of course, the alertness of the troops led to the neutralization of the attackers, and their vehicles that were laden with IED and other items were impounded, and 5 of those attackers were equally arrested.
Hopefully, this reassurance from the National Security Council will give citizens a sense of safety as security agencies prowl around the federal capital to exterminate any planned attack or threats to national security. Femi Akonde, TVC News, Abuja.
Our thanks to Femi Akonde there, bringing us up to speed. And as I said earlier, our guest is Dr. Tony Ofoyetan, DG International Institute of Professional Security. Now, Tony, well, it's good that we have been reassured. I think this started from the very, very beginning when this advisory went out. There was criticism as to why was it going out in this way. Some people even were taking the mickey, saying that, look, things are happening back there. You are not alerting your people, and that is back in their home countries. Speaking to America, particularly, casual conversations on social media. How come it's us here that you're going to be informing? But nevertheless, we had people take very serious note of it, our security people, and we were assured that all was well. Now, this report also seems to be very much in that line. We've spoken about this once, Tony, and you gave your impressions along the lines of, are we sure this is not making a mountain out of a molehill? But now, following the attack over the weekend in Somalia that reportedly has been claimed by Al-Shabaab, does this bring the threat here further into focus, that if it happened there, it could happen anywhere, or are the terrains entirely different?
Thank you, Okoyori. Let me start by saying that for now, it's an established known fact that terrorism is more or less like, I wouldn't want to say becoming part of us, but the word terrorism, we are getting a little bit familiar with it. Although recently it's been dissipated to some extent, and I think I want to give the military formation kudos to it. In the last 4 months, we've seen good results from them. But having said so, that it happened elsewhere doesn't mean it would happen here, or that it happened here doesn't mean it won't happen elsewhere. However, I don't need to be a soothsayer to know that Nigeria is battling against insurgency. So even without any travel advice, without any security advice, I know naturally that Nigeria as a whole, we already have a major security challenge, talking about the battle against terrorism. The Northeast, the North Central, the Southeast, I think the Southwest had a pocket of its own at intervals. And we have already said it that, look, as we speak today, whether you like it or not, Nigeria is some sort of under siege. Now, if you look at all the Okada riders, if you look at all those that are selling what you call cucumber, carrot, whatever name you choose to call them, that are non-Nigerians and are domiciled in this country, and they are well spread. If you also look at the different camps that have been set up in our forests, in different terrains, in our villages, in different camps, you will know that as we speak today, you don't need an American to tell you that Nigeria is under siege.
We're talking about the president meeting with service chiefs connected to the whole advisory of America, and then Britain, and then other countries. And Tony was telling us at the time that when you look at it, we don't really need a foreign country to tell us that there is danger around. And it was in the middle of that I had to take my break. Please continue, Tony.
Okay, thank you very much, Uncle Yori. I think basically my challenge to the approach of the Americans in terms of the security advice issued to its citizen, what they did was as good as when you shout fire, fire in a crowded cinema. I'm sure that you know the implication. And when you begin to scream or shout or even say it in a very low voice, fire, just the word fire itself in a crowded cinema, I'm sure you know the implication. Now, however, there are different notions and beliefs to it. But if you ask me as a security professional, I will ask the government and especially the security agencies to do their job. Before now, DSS has issued similar, in short, the first security alert came from DSS. It was on that alert that you discovered that in the past 2 months, Abuja as a city has been cobbing up all its shanties, has been destroying all manner of places that are, habitable to criminals and the like. And you see that Abuja recently is no longer cohabiting or criminals the way it ought to. The suburb of Abuja is now a major concentration of security agencies. The the FCT Development Agency and the like have been going from one suburb to the other to make sure that they don't have shanties, they don't have places that can, hide out, can be hideout to criminals and the like. Now that's to tell you that they are aware of the fact of the tendency that there could be such attack from criminals and the like. And for America to come all out to say this, America also know the implication. They also know very well that people will react the way they have reacted. They are aware. Don't forget that CIA is one of the most powerful intelligence agencies in the world. And they always have reason why they do things the way they do it. So for me, as far as I'm concerned, the only area I think I was not too comfortable with was the information minister coming out at that time. I feel very strongly that if somebody had done it, it would have been more effective than the information minister. Yes, it's true that we need to calm the people. Yes, it's true that we need to make sure that there is no panic and the like. But I don't think it fell within the direct purview of the information minister at that point in time to be talking about, about assuring the people that they should go about their normal businesses and all those stuff like that. And you know the way our people will take that information as at that time.
Okay.
But having said so also, now, what I expect from the government now is to concentrate on insider threats. And to concentrate on insider threats, you look at the most probable areas that a terrorist will attack and it will make the noise, the desired result, the airports, for example, in Abuja. Abuja airport is a critical one you can think of. Government facilities, National Assembly, Presidency, Eagle Square, just name it. Now, all these places, you have to concentrate more on insider threat. Because, yes, it's true that you say you are putting BOLA, you are putting physical access control to ensure that people don't come in with IEDs and, drop bombs there, and unwanted people don't come in and the like. But if you talk about those that can facilitate that happening are those that are inside. Now, that means that the DSS, if you ask me, should be able to do a reappraisal of all the personnel within all the government facilities that are critical and do a personnel audit within those places. If possible, do a redeployment. It could be a temporary redeployment. It could be at whatever level of redeployment. Now, there should be some level of structural alteration. Now, that structural alteration will also alter the plan of whosoever wants to do anything. You expect that this person is the director of this person is the director of that. And the next time you are coming, he's no longer on that seat. Now, I'm not saying sack anybody.
I hear you.
But there must be a distortion of insider threat. That will help.
Okay. When the Americans decided in their wisdom to go the way they went, we've heard from experts, from security experts, that, don't take it in context, put it in the context. America was not talking to the Nigerian public. It was only talking to the handful of American nationals that were in here. It leaked, and because of that leakage, this is why people are now, taking it the way they are taking it. Well, as you were just saying, the CIA is a very powerful, if not the most powerful, security organization in the world. And whoever was in charge, when they were talking to the nationals, some Nigerians among them, it would have leaked. And so, what exactly is going on is the question that a lot of people will ask, because they don't believe America would have just got up and, for play, as we say, have made that announcement. They must have seen something. It doesn't help, whoever was apprehensive, it doesn't help that over the weekend we heard about the attack in Somalia that has been credited to Al-Shabaab. I imagine the Americans will probably be saying, well, you see now, This is the kind of thing we're trying to warn about. That's why I asked in part of my first question as whether Somalia and Nigeria, in terms of these terrorist attacks, are entirely different terrains. Do you think the Somalia attack factors into this, where over 100 were reportedly killed, 300 are injured?
Well, in fairness to our security forces, I think there's a big wall of difference. Yes, in terms of terrorism, in terms of the fight against terrorism and the like, we would say, on a broad perspective, you categorize them as terrorists, whether Al-Shabaab, whether Boko Haram, whether ISIS, whether Al-Qaeda, whatever, we categorize all of them. And if you also ask me, I also believe that there is a world central control of all the terrorist organizations. They get to each territory, they bear specific name that may be known to such or familiar with such terrain, and they break into different cell groups. But at the end of the day, they have a symbiotic relationship with one another in different countries. So it is also possible that you have information wired down to Boko Haram or down to ISWAP that have an a overflowing effect on Nigeria. But as it is today, it may be a little bit difficult, if not, it will be very difficult for them to operate the way they operated in Somalia. As it is today, I don't know of tomorrow. So far, so well, you would have observed that the issue of bomb blasts in different facilities had gone down. You are not talking about kidnapping. You are not talking about, spontaneous attack and just village attack in and out, like the guerrilla attack and all those stuff, in and out. They will watch the security forces and make sure that they are not on ground. Or alternatively, they will penetrate into the security forces, get information. That is why we talk about the insider threat. Get the information they need to be able to operate and to be able to attack. Once they get that information, they use it at that moment and they withdraw to their cover. However, the problem is now, who are those that they are supporters? Who are those that are funding them, especially in terms of international communities, international countries? I know that, some of this information may be coming on the ground that, we don't know anything about all those. But for me, America, France, Britain cannot cleanly wash their hands away from terrorism, especially in African region. We've had a lot of accusation and counter-accusation. The role of France, especially, look at, they have a military base in Niger, and we're having a lot of problems there. You have all these terrorists going in and out of Niger at every point in time. Niger has not been very forthcoming when it comes to true prosecution of war against terrorism in Nigeria. Niger is relatively peaceful. Why is Niger so peaceful and Nigeria is not that peaceful? And meanwhile, we have most of these boys crossing from Niger, crossing from Chad to come and cause havoc right in Nigeria. So these are things that a government really need to come all out, identify countries with good evidence, and as far as I'm concerned, confront them. You are talking about the survival of your own people. They are also talking about the survival of their own people, because all the raw material that sustain the Western world is gotten from Africa. Okay. All, I repeat, yes. All 90% of the raw materials that sustain Western world is gotten from Africa. So for them to also sustain their own economy, understandably, is to also ensure that they have free access to all this raw material. And at times, if they are not getting the required free access, they may not, give you the type of peace you require. Okay. Nigeria is such a big and strategic country in Africa. And if Nigeria gets it right, Nigeria has the potential to be one of the biggest economies in the world. We have 23 solid mineral resources at commercial quantity in Nigeria. What population are we? And then we are now talk of America has about 24 solid mineral resources. What is their population? So the problem is not necessarily natural wealth. The problem is getting it right in terms of leadership. Okay. If Nigeria is able to get it right in terms of leadership, America, France, Britain, they will be a threat. And as far as I'm concerned, government should sit down, look inward, forget about what they call a security threat and all those stuff like that, and think about Nigeria first before any other thing. Just as America is thinking about America, Britain is thinking about Britain, they will say America for Americans. Why can't it be Nigeria for Nigerians?
Okay.
Now let's look at it holistically and take such decision that irrespective of whose international awe is God, we take such decision that would eventually, it will not be palatable to them.
Okay.
If government is taking certain decision, it won't be palatable to them, but we have to take it for the sake of the country.
Let me ask your impressions, Tony. Following the advisory, the now famous, or is it infamous, advisories, in fact, you can pluralize that, because following America, others sort of joined suit. I was reading newspaper reports over the weekend, and we know, by the way, that they won't be going for real hard targets. They're going to be dodging around, trying to find out where security is low, soft targets, I believe you professionals call those kind of things. Now, reports showed that the churches were full on Sundays. Yes, some private security people had been engaged in some churches and people were being frisked. But by and large, the attendance at churches did not indicate that our people were worried at all. In fact, there was no difference according to newspaper reports. Now, I wonder if this is a matter of concern to you, because even the terrorists probably will be reading newspapers, will be watching media, and when they see that this, if that is, first of all, if there was anything at all before America and the rest of them got up and started to try to warn us, even if that threat were true, we've been told by our authorities that there is, I wouldn't say no cause for alarm, but that we're entirely on top of the situation. Do you think those kind of reports are helpful, telling where there are congregations of people, in spite of what you heard, life is continuing? If there were thousands there then, there are thousands there still. What do you think? Is there a role for the news media too when it comes to security and reporting on it?
Okay, well, let me say that as far as the issue of people gathering together is concerned, I am not expecting that people will stop congregating. But I expect that the organizations that are responsible for the congregation of such people should be able to put in minimum security measures, and in some areas, maximum security measures. It's not just churches congregating. You are talking of the different political parties. Obi 5 million man watch, Jagaban 20 million man watch, what do you call it? Articulated whatever million man watch is going on as we speak now all over the country. And of course, the terrorists would now determine whether they want to attack or not. So it behoves on those who are organizing such campaign to make sure that those that are coming to the campaign ground are fixed and they are free, and if possible, inform them that they should not come with certain things, maybe like bags, concealed items, and all those stuff like that. Yes, but that people will not come. No matter what you say, people will come. People will go to church. People will go to mosque. So it's not left on the churches or the mosques to make sure that they put their houses in order to prevent anything that has to do with such threats. I will not say that because there is this advisory that Nigeria should stand still. That on its own, psychologically, it's even a defeatist mentality to say that we should not do anything again because we are advised that terrorists are coming. Now, in terrorism, you are advised to wipe out the signature of the terrorists. Not that terrorism is meant to cause fear and to cause panic. That's why it's called terrorism. Any act of violence, whether verbal or physical, that will result in bringing fear is the act of terrorism. That's why, to me, even what America has done itself is an emotional terrorism, as far as I'm concerned. Because in the world today, you cannot convince me that you are passing a message to only your citizens. You are talking of a digital world where you pass a message to either the email or to the WhatsApp, and within seconds, it goes all over the world.
And the U.S. knows it.
As far as I'm concerned, If you have such advisory, yes, please.
I say, and the U.S. knows exactly what you said. We live in a digital world. You say you're speaking to your citizens in our country. Of course, you're speaking to everybody here. It will leak. Nigerian Americans will tell other Nigerians, who are not Nigerian Americans. So there's a sense in which the security agencies have complained that they are at a loss as to why America and now the other countries are not talking with them, but are speaking, as it were, directly with style to the Nigerian public. Well, you've sort of given some insight into why that may be, but we always are looking at security in this country. But in particular, the aspect of the alert by the American embassy in the first instance, and that sort of created a domino effect, and other people started, doing the same thing. And then our authorities, the president actually, summoned the security chiefs, and I imagine got a report from them. They would have reported to him, and then he would have added whatever he thought was necessary. So, Tony, in that light, I wanted to ask, following the meeting with the security chiefs, you saw the report we had at the beginning of the program, it looks as if our people are saying there's no cause for panic. Professionals are at their stations, from police to secret organizations to other security organizations. Everything that can be done is being done, and it's not as if we even needed the Americans to, tap us on the shoulder before we've done all of this. So would you say that there's every reason for us to be reassured that, look, we just have to be vigilant, but there's no reason to panic?
Yes, we have to be vigilant, and we have to be cautious. We also have to be very proactive, as it is now. That it didn't happen now does not mean it can never happen again. Now, what that means is this. As it is today, can we convince ourselves that the police and the military formation have the numerical strength to be able to combat whatever will come? Now, if the answer is yes, now can they also convince us that it will be minimal casualty? Now, that's also another aspect. Now, can they convince us that they don't really need the assistance of other non-paramilitary agencies? And to what extent can they now look inward and see how they can harness the potentials of maybe private security organizations or state-owned security organizations? It is high time that we begin to, be very realistic about the threat on ground to our nation called Nigeria. Because as we speak today, I said something. The Amotekun are saying, arm us. Ebebiagu are saying, arm us. JTF, the civilian JTF are saying, arm us. Why can't the government entrench this? I don't see anything wrong in, if you don't want to legalize individuals bearing arms. There is nothing wrong in when you have complementary security organizations funded by state with accurate record, be armed to be able to complement the effort of the police. They know the forest, they know their shrine, they know their bush, they know all their mountains better than a man that is coming from another region in the name of being an army or being a police officer or be a DSS officer. Why can't the government look inward and look at the possibility of saying, okay, let us even release AK-47s to all the Amotekun, all the civilian JTF, all the Bebiagus, and all the like, and let us improve, move from AK-47 to AK-49, a more sophisticated one. There is nothing wrong in that, because whether you like it or not, now you got a security alert that there may be an attack on Abuja. And as I speak today, the way terrorists operate is that operation on itself is already automatically botched, except on the condition that the government security agency now went to sleep totally. If they did not go to sleep totally, it's understandable that they know that security will be utmostly at alert, so they will hold on until when they see any vulnerability, or alternatively, they will move to another jurisdiction, another region. So what is Lagos State doing, for example? If you look at the Lagos-Ibadan Express Road, look at a place like Kara, the bush there's already a settlement already coming up in an Ogun State axis of it, on a major road that goes into Lagos State. Now, what are you going to tell me? Are you going to tell me government approved that the settlement should be there? Are you going to tell me that they know the numerical strength of those people that are settling there? Or are you going to convince me that that place is meant for cattle ranching? But you are seeing it every now and then, that there is already a settlement there ongoing and at a very sporadic speed. And that is a place that if anything happens, it will cut off Lagos State from the whole of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. And yet, you are looking at it, you don't need an American to come and tell you anything. You don't need any American to come and tell you that, look, there are certain places that certain structures and certain settlements should not be.
What do you think is the reason?
Because we politicize everything, we regionalize everything, we allow it to go until when there is casualty, it is at that point in time you now see government agencies, security agencies running up and down. Yet there are certain vulnerabilities, there are certain risks that are very obvious. You and I can see. You don't need to be a soothsayer. In some villages, there are settlements that are obvious. Even the villagers know that these people are not part of us, but they dare not talk. Now, what stops the government as we speak now? Not until it happens. Because these people have a central command. They all have phones. All they are waiting for is just for that command to be given. And when that command is given, the police has withdrawn guns and licenses from individuals that can defend themselves with the hope and mind that they can defend us. Yet they are allowing terrorists to settle down in villages, to settle down in suburbs, all over the country. I'm not even talking of Abuja. Abuja is safe and secure any day, anytime. I say Abuja is safe and secure any day, anytime. So the problem is not necessarily Abuja. And let me tell you, the terrorists are not even going to be looking at Abuja. Once they are able to dissipate and decentralize all your sub-regions and all your other localities and the like, Abuja itself will come down. And that is what government should understand. Better than the threat of America telling us that something is going to happen. Whether they tell us something is going to happen or not, something is already happening. And if something is already happening, what is the government doing? I'm talking about being proactive. I'm talking about going after them. I'm not talking about waiting until it happens at all. Because if we wait until it happens, it may be too devastating. It may be too late at that point in time. I give kudos to Lagos State. If for nothing, someone who has done excellently well in terms of banning Okada in some regions and in some local government in Lagos State, because Lagos State cannot afford to have a blast. It cannot afford to. Indeed. So for me, I see that as a very good proactive step, and I expect that we will take it around the whole of Lagos State. We will not die. If there's no Okada in Lagos State, nobody will die. We will adjust. It's just a matter of time. And it is always better off than having a group of miscreants that will come in bike and blow up a marketplace and blow up Third Mainland Bridge and go to a hospital and blow it up. And before you even gather to settle down, it's all over. Now, these are things that the terrorists are capable of doing. And that is why you yourself must take a very hard stance as it is. So for me, I think that government should be liberal. When Amotekun says we want to be armed, there is nothing wrong. You have a record of those that are members of Amotekun. You have a record of those that are members of government security agencies. Arm them. They will only complement it. Give them the rules and regulations.
But
give
as
them
you
the
know,
types of gun you want them to operate. Tony, and let them always come for regular training and that will solve it.
But Tony, as you know, people have been calling for this, but it's always a very, very sensitive subject. We're not sure of ourselves enough, seems to be the reason that we've been hearing that if you arm these, some of these pseudo official organizations and private, you spoke about private, even they might want to consider private security firms. We've never been so sure of ourselves, have we, Tony, in this country, to trust that those that are armed won't then use such arms at the behest of some political center. Now, what the argument for and against all of that is, let's just leave that alone. But this is the way it has always been. Our people are not likely to become like America, where it is even enshrined in their constitution the right to bear arms. It is the situation that we have. So you had spoken earlier at the very top of the program that we have to determine, do we have the numerical strength to do the right or a good job? And I think, with what you're saying the answer is in the negative, that no, we don't have the number that we would like. So we're really working handicapped here. Now to go and arm people, you feel that we could profit from that?
Now, Uncle Yori, let me say something. I'm an advocate, as it is today, that state government-funded security apparatus should be allowed to bear arms. Now, if you are afraid that individual bearing arms, the husband can be angry with the wife and decide to shoot the wife can just suspect the husband of infidelity and decide to kill. Whether there are guns or there are no guns, women that are capable of killing will not use gun, they will use knife to stab the man to death or poison him to death. There are avalanche of examples like that. But we're talking about this state government-sponsored security formation. And when you look, what is police doing that last man in Lagos State is not doing in terms of traffic management, even better, apart from the fact that they are not bearing arms? What are we talking about? The fact that they are not bearing arms is now a vulnerability that the criminals are exploiting. Now, criminals bear illegal arms. Did you give Boko Haram license to bear arms? Did you give Al-Shabaab or ISWAP license to bear arms? Did you give kidnappers license to bear arms? They bear sophisticated weapons. So why is it that when it comes to a Nigerian that is expected to defend himself, you are not bringing legality and you are not everywhere? Nigerian population, Lagos, the Nigerian police population as we speak today is less than 500,000. Policing 210 million human beings. How feasible is that? How many policemen do we have in Lagos State, which is metropolitan?
So you know what?
Talking about having an agency that is recognized by government, complementing your efforts.
Well, in effect, we're bordering on state police. The need for it, even in this conversation, it has gone there. That look, this whole matter of people being scared of a state police. Scared is not the word they use, but I used it. People being scared of a state police. Maybe the time has come to revisit it all over the country, to revisit this whole idea. Because clearly the authorities they don't have the numerical strength. It's not so much they don't have the numerical strength. We are told that we don't have the wherewithal to pay. You said the number of the police is about 500,000. We don't have a number. I don't think we have the wherewithal to, if it is 500,000 from your estimate, multiply that by 4. To have 2 million policemen, we don't have the facilities, is what we are hearing. But the problem right now is that Nigeria is just what it is. People will come and talk, they panic us, our own authorities will come, they soothe us. Only God knows what the terrorist is doing. I'm glad you said that where we are at now, that particular operation, if it was indeed in existence, has been bust. It's not going to happen anymore the way terrorists work. Now they know Abuja is going to be crawling with security personnel. They're not going to go there. But rightly, you shifted focus. That how about places that are not Abuja? I'm afraid that's a very, very important thing that you brought up, Tony. And I hope I just hope the authorities are also listening. But I can't imagine that it has escaped their notice as well. Because you and all the fellow professionals that speak tell us that ordinarily Nigerian security personnel are of the best, of the very highest order, both in terms of thinking and sometimes in operational, whatever you call it. So they know They know these things you're talking. They know of these dangers that you just told us along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. What we're going to do after knowing, I think that is the big question. We know, but what can we do? So, Tony, I want to thank you very much for...
Well,
okay, yes, very briefly, please, because I wanted to thank you for opening this whole thing up and letting us see other aspects of it. But please go ahead. We've almost run out of time.
Well, I think basically as it is now, I would only say that the slogan, if you see something, say something, should be a national culture in us. And I think I also want to plead with the those that are handling the information in terms of security in this country to understand that whosoever is disseminating the information should be such a person that Nigerians hold in extremely high esteem. Maybe some of these things should be out of the politicians' mouths. Let it be people like maybe the Chief of Defense Intelligence, and people like that.
If not the president himself.
To tell us.
If not the president himself.
If not the president, well, politicians should be out of it.
Okay.
Because when Lai Mohammed was saying something, one, it was too hasty, and it has a boomeranging effect. Thank you very much, and I wish Nigeria safety.
Thank you.
God will protect us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Tony. Really appreciate your making the time for us. Thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Okay then. Okay, so what we can do now is that we can open the lines now. We can open the lines and just wait on your calls. But it's an interesting scenario that Tony sort of was painting for us there. He seems to be very much on the side of we don't need anybody to tell us that we're in dire situations here. And if I just can't imagine. So sorry about that. But it was supposed to be off, and apparently it's not off. And Mazi Okorafo, please carry on. Carry on, Mazi.
Good morning, Sayuri. Good morning, my brother.
I'm so sorry.
Sayuri, this issue of security alert is very, very important.
Yes.
Because when you hear about security alert, there must be a synergy for the populace and the security agencies. Now, let us look at it historically, or just scientifically or practically. Now, because of the alert, you know that schools in Abuja, maybe 40% or 45% schools must have closed for this term, the next year. Now, you ask yourself, is that how we are going to operate? It's not. Now, let me give you an example. There are students who will be writing WAEC come next year. And, when you are writing WAEC, you have to do your registration. Not only registration, you have to prepare for the exams. Are you going to do it e-learning? It's not possible. You must sit down and read and prepare for the exam. Now, some of these schools, I'm sure they have a program or a syllabus that's supposed to cover. How would they cope? They will tell the children to go back. When they come back January, they rush. So it's affecting the students themselves, affecting the parents, because parents must have paid their boarding fees to cover this term. Will the school refund them? They can't refund them. So what I'm trying to put across is that when such things comes up, we should not start blaming anybody, whether it's right or they're alert. Alert is very, very important. Even when you go to a worship center, they will tell you repent, that the kingdom of heaven is at hand. What are you doing? You go to follow the tenets of the Holy Bible and the Holy Quran, not to do what? Not to do anything contrary to those things. That is why the security alert is also important, because schools, that is why I say, the educational sectors, the federal government, the state, and the community should provide security for the schools, not only for the children, for themselves too. Because if they don't have 24/7 security, the children themselves cannot concentrate, they cannot assimilate. So that is why we don't normally leave all this to one-sided. But the question is, South Africa had the same alert. That was last week. The president came on board and said, look, that they were supposed to see him before they blew their alert. Now, what happened? Africa, they didn't go to exchange words. But in Nigeria, we start blaming them. What happened? The South Africa, the minute they got that message, but they switched into action. What happened in Somalia? We saw what happened when the Al-Shabaab went there. What did they do? You saw the mass destruction. They wanted to blow up Federal Ministry of Education in Somalia. But unfortunately, the bomb exploded. You saw how many people that were killed. Students, small, big, and that. Is that how we're supposed to? Because if you not, somebody was going to report on the Fox TV. They had a similar alert, but the government needs to be said after all. Al-Shabaab always destroy. Because you saw the mass destruction it did to Somalia. Now their eyes are open. So Nigerian government, please let us not ignore anything secretary. We should take it judiciously, religiously. Thank you very much.
Indeed, thank you very much, Mazi Okoruafo. It's a worrying situation, but our authorities, tell us that. I mean, they've reported to the president. That's the whole import, and that's how seriously we're taking this whole affair. The president met with our security chiefs yesterday, and we showed you a report of that at the very top of the program. I suppose the bottom line of all of this is, as they always tell us, we need to be alert, but not panic and not, as it were, given to the terror agenda of terrorists. That probably relates to the part where, Nigerians are not going to be intimidated. The security people are up and doing. People are going about their businesses, which is what indeed the authorities have recommended, that please proceed with caution. Don't throw caution to the wind. But for now, Nigeria is good. I guess that's the bottom line. Nigeria is good within reason in these perilous times. So that's our program today. Please join us tomorrow for a fresh edition. I am Yori Folarin. Bye-bye for now.